without any further ado, say welcome to Dalton Powell. Come on, man. Thank you very much, John. Very cool. Grab a seat. You see, I've known that's a very enthusiastic clapping there, sis. I like your style. Well done. You wasn't enthusiastically clapping for me. I noticed that. No problem. Okay, that's not a problem. Some people say to me that I'm not quite photogenic. You're supposed to say, you see, are you one voice in that? One pitiful voice saying the brother ugly, you know him ugly. Anyway, no more talking. But I'm now sitting next to a male model. I'm just hoping I won't make you look too bad. Dalton, pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
Now, Dalton, I've known you for a number of years because you've been on the radio station with us at Radio Derby before they fired me. But I've got over that. It's a long story. It's not about me. And I've got over that. My therapist says, let it go. And we also spoke on Kemet as well.
That's right.
A few times. Now, I know you're a fireman. Now tell me, before you go into where you are today, tell me a bit about your background in terms of growing up. Are you from Nottingham?
I am a Nottingham lad, yes. As a family, there's probably 10 of us in our family.
Wow! But the same house?
No, at one time there was probably just 4 of us, but I've got older brothers and older sisters who are in the 70s. Yes. But as a young man growing up, we was growing up in a predominantly mixed area, black and white, and we had very large families. You remember those large families? We had Powell families, Smith families, and these were big communities where we were. And as a young boy growing up, it was my parents came over here. My dad was the first one that came over, then the mum came over in the late 40s, early 50s. And
which country?
Jamaica, yes. And he set up home. He was a builder by trade anyway. But when he was in Jamaica, he was a fisherman. And my dad, as a young boy, I used to listen to my dad's stories and be inspired by. I never went to Jamaica until I was a older. I went to Jamaica probably the first time when I was 6. You can't remember that. It was only when I got married 5 years ago. That's when I went to Jamaica for the first time. So exactly, yeah. So a long time. But growing up in the household, we was quite a tight family, and I had an extended family as well. So it was great fun. We had great times, and my parents used to think we're down at the local park, you know? Go down the park and you run up and down, you know? We was carefree then days. But little did they know, when we was growing up, we had the 6-week holidays and we had the great bicycle ride. Everybody had a bike. You didn't buy the bike from the shop. You made it up yourself. You know that connection. Yeah? So my mum and dad think we're running around in the local park. We used to ride to Derby, we used to ride to Birmingham, aged 9, 10, 11. You know, it was only later on when they realised. You know, so we had a great growing up time as young kids.
Now, it seems like every black story involves the time when the child was young and getting into trouble. Were you that type of person?
I must say, my dad was very strict. And my dad used to say, nobody bring police in any door. That was the golden rule. You know, and I was one of those kids. I wanted to be part of the group. You know, we used to always hang around with older people, but you wanted to be part of that group. But I always knew, do not bring police to the door. You know? And I think I went through a period where I was easily led. And anyone know where Victoria Centre is in Nottingham, yeah? Back in the day, skateboarding, we used to skateboard. And it was smooth, you know? And then, you know, when you're doing the slalom. And then there was a big shop there. I must have been about 14, 15. And there used to always be these black security guards chasing us all over the place. Funny enough, there's still a couple of them are still there now, you know, from the day. And I was doing slalom, and I slipped on the marble floor, and my skateboard went straight through Jessup's big window.
Lovely.
Yeah? And I had speed. And I was just about to launch into speed, and boom! Security man grabbed me. And all I went, I just started bawling. Because the only thing I was thinking of, my dad's going to kill me. That was no police, my dad's going to kill me. And he said, where do you live? I'm not telling him. No way. He brought me into the room, sat me down, and he says, you better tell me or we're going to call the police. So in the end, I told him, my dad came about an hour later. And my dad says to the guy, listen, nobody bring no police, I will pay the money. Now this window, you know the big window back in the day, I think it was £450 back in the day. So that was a major piece of money, you know, and my dad paid it. And I had 2 paper rounds. And I think I was paying for that for about 2-3 years. But I got absolutely beaten. But you know what? It changed me in a lot of ways. And again, even as a young man at school, I was going into a particular way. I wanted to be part of a group. And I must say, I respect teachers. And on this occasion, we had like a junior teacher. And the class was completely disrupted. And I'm making noise and she's losing control. And she slapped me on the hand with a ruler. And in my defense, I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I pulled the ruler back and hit her on her hand, see how she felt it. You know? Who told me to do that? And I'm like, yeah. But inside my heart, I knew I'd done wrong. She went out of the class, and then all my lads and girls, yeah. I said, I don't care. And there was a lady named Mrs. Stanton. She was only about 5'2", but we used to call her the pocket battleship. You know, like a Rottweiler. You don't mess. You think of back. She used to deal with you, and she says, "You outside the class now." And I just walked with a swagger. But I knew what was going to happen. So come break time, she took me outside and waited by the car. And all the kids were saying, where you going? Oh, we're just going out to get some Staples to get some stuff. But I know she's taken to see my dad. Now, my dad just come off shift. So this is about 10 o'clock in the morning. Knocked on the door. My dad looked at me and looked at teacher. Yes, teacher, what's wrong? Come in. And she told my dad. And my dad just looked at me. And the teacher didn't move. She didn't interfere. My dad took the belt off. And you know when every beating is a beating with words, you should not lick no teacher. Yeah? Who do you think you is? You know? And I'm like, you turn big man now. Eye water came to my eyes, you know. And they frog marched me back to school. I went in front of the teacher and I apologised to the teacher. And I got 6 of the best. And you know what? That was a turning point with me, you know, because that changed my whole mindset. Because I didn't want to go that way. I didn't want to conform to all of these gangs that was in the school at the time. And so what I did, I became a thespian. I went into acting. I started doing a lot of amateur dramatics. And I must say I had a decent voice, so I did musicals. And you know, I thoroughly enjoyed my school time. You're
one of those people that, you know, you're a great role model. And because, why are you that role model? Because you've done all the things that people say you can't do. Now, I know you're a fireman now. How long have you been a fireman?
17 years.
17 years. So, what did you do before you became a fireman?
Well, what's happened, when I left school, you fall into different lines of work. And I remember when I left school at 15, because my birthday was August time. I took a job just for 6 weeks working on in the construction industry, for standing construction, and with my dad. And I had a great job. It was summertime, I had a green suit, I had a mask, and my job was to put all the installations in the roof at the time. Sun is hot in there, up in the loft. They never stormed me most of the day because I was sleeping most of the day up there. But from there, when I left after that job, I did a small period of time working as apprentice baker. I was an apprentice baker, and then I went into the military, and I was an infantryman. And
that's frontline, isn't it?
yes, infantrymen were called as cannon fodders because you're the first to go in. You know what I mean? And I trained within there as a physical training instructor as well, because I had a natural gift. Even as a young boy, I had a natural gift for running. I was no good at football. You know, I could toe peck the ball, but I had no ball control. So they used to say, hey, put Dalton on in the second half because he had the speed. When everyone's tired, you just kick the ball in front of you and you just run on the ball and kick it. Well, 9 times out of 10, I used to miss the goal anyway. You know what I mean? But I had a natural gift for running. And it was through the sprinting and stuff like that, it really started to take shape within the within the military.
So, okay, you got involved in running
Yes.
in the military.
I ran at school.
Okay.
I ran at school.
How good were you at school?
I was the best within my year throughout my year. At the time, my best time was about 11.2.
Was that for 100 metres or 400?
100 metres, and you know, I was quite a skinny little guy, and I just loved running. And I remember back in '79 there was they had the county championships, and I ran there, and I was amongst all these other schools from all over. English schools, everyone knows about the English schools? Yeah. And 79, and all I saw was thousands of kids. And I thought I was good. Well, all I remember is seeing whoosh, 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 and I was the donkey at the back. You know, it was a blur because some of these guys were on another level. But it gave me that tasting for competition, and I really understood the fundamentals of running until later on as a young boy. But I had a natural gift for running, and I used it to the best of my ability within the military. But it was funny because even though I was a sprinter, I loved marathons, half marathon. I was doing half marathon because as a military man, you're running for miles and miles. So I guess that first part of my life, I really developed long distance running, and it was only later on in life I started to concentrate on the short sprints.
Now, okay, so you're now left the military. Now, when you leave the military, do you go straight into the fire service?
No.
Explain.
No. Well, what happened is I didn't really know what to do because I had this qualification. I worked within the leisure industry anyway, and it was my sisters. I'll never forget it. My sisters say, "We're going to put you into this. There's a national competition, Mr. UK." Yeah. Well, back then days it was called Mr. Super Cool. And my mind said, "Yeah, put me in these rubbish for," you know what I mean? But they said, "You've got a good look," and they looked at all the other guys and said, "You can be all right," you know what I mean? So I didn't really think about it at the time, and they put me into this competition, and I got through. I got through to the regional heats, and funny enough, one of the regional heats was held at the Pink Coconut here. And so I turned up with about a good 30 other guys, and we had to, still sounds funny, we had to wear evening suit, and we had to wear swimsuit, and
Speedos?
Yeah, back in those days, and all I heard, and if women don't like it, boo, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean, because women are harsh. But I got through, and I got to the regional final at the Bayswater Hotel the regional final in Birmingham, and then went to the Bayswater finals in London, and it must have been about 2,000 people there, and 90% women. and I came second. I was really, really pleased. I came second and I won a modelling contract. And it was funny because the guy who won, he was like a bodybuilder, but they couldn't use him because he was far too big. So they used me and that's how I got into modelling. And I was assigned to a modelling agency called Flame Model Management back in there, which was quite a lot. Loaded magazine.
Yeah.
The owner owned that.
So when are we talking? What year was that?
So you're talking about around 87, 86.
So you've been modelling for that length of time?
Yeah, I've been modelling a bit long, probably a bit early around that. Yeah, I've been successful in modelling. Yes. See,
I always point out to people because a lot of people don't know this about me, but I used to be a model myself. My own sister says, "What for?" You know, marigolds. That hurts, you know. That family, you know. The microphone is definitely working. So when you first got into modelling, you know, because you're modelling. You can also you've got your career in the army, I'd imagine.
That's right.
And you've also and then you also are athletically minded, and
that's right.
So how did you juggle all three of them at the same time?
Well, once I came out of the military, it was really because I really wanted to. I was like a lost ship. I didn't really know where my direction was going because I moved to London. It was exciting in London. I was just going with the flow at that time, and the modelling seemed to take centrefold for a period of time. Even though I was training, because I was able to train and just be a normal club runner, run for my club. I ran for back then. I was running for Notts AC. And then because I was in London, I was running for the top club, Belgrave Harriers. And I was running with the best athletes. And I was just generally enjoying my sport. Modelling was taking me all around the world. I was going to Milan, Paris, you know, because I was like the kneecap to I was just skinny, you know, very skinny back then. And I was being very, very successful. But there was times when there was a lull, because back then days, there wasn't a lot of black models in agencies. And I used to go, once I finished with my agency, because everyone told me that you need to try and get onto a couple more books. My agency was getting me work, but they weren't getting me enough. So I learned my apprenticeship for about a year with them, and then I wanted to branch out. And I was hearing, we've got a black male model, we don't need another one. Or have you tried to go to that agency? And it was the same old. So I knew back in London, there probably was about 10 of us who I knew was doing the circuit at the time. But we had to do a lot of groundwork to get ourselves established, because you had what we call, you had your portfolio, and you had what we call tear sheet. And these were working pictures so they can see that you work for Kodak, and see that you work for different companies. And that's when they took a chance with you. And slowly I developed my tear sheet, and it was quite impressive, and I was able to constantly get a lot of work.
So you've done a lot of modelling. I mean, even up to like a couple of weeks ago, my wife brought me a brochure from NatWest Bank, and you was on the front cover of that one. So you're still very, very current.
Yeah, well, I must say, nationally, I'm probably with a good 15 agencies, and they know me now. I've grown with a lot of these young agencies who are quite well established now, and they know me and not what I can offer. And the skill base, I'm a catwalk model. I can do dance. I can do all the range of what they is, and that is good for an agency. And if you're just in my early career, I was just predominantly catwalk model. Now, me personally, I don't like doing catwalk now. I still do it, but the old body kind of gets you hung on it. So give me a little photo shoot. You know what I mean?
Fantastic. So you're juggling the modelling. We're now moving to the current time. You're working full time as a fireman?
Yes. It was funny that what's happened back in the 80s. I was studying at Kingston College because I was studying because I'd just come out of the military, and one of the things that I was doing, I did a degree in sports science. And while I was down there, I was working a little side job for pizza, just to get that little money. And my manager said, I'm going to go into the fire service. And I said, oh yeah, that's good. You know what I mean? I wish you all the best. I didn't really know him that much, but he left shortly after. And it was about 8 months later, this big shiny fire engine turns up and all his boys came out. And he popped in and said, Dalton, how you doing? Can you sort us out with pizzas? You know what I mean? So I was the floor manager, so I sorted him out. And he was saying, how do I get into that fire? Now this is the early 80s. And I knew back in them days, there was hardly any black firefighters nationally. And at that time, London was doing a massive campaign to try and recruit black and ethnic minority people into the fire service to reflect the diversity of London. And they did a massive recruit. So what they were doing at the Brixton College at the time, they were doing classes to upskill on your English, maths and stuff like that, because these are the part of the test that you had to be good at, because when you go in and do a maths test, they were really strict. So when he gave me that information, I thought, I'm going to join. So I did this 12-week course with everybody doing physical exercises, everything. And then we had the guarantee that we were going to do an exam. Well, I failed it. And all my peers passed. I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted. And I said, you know what? I had to wait a year to go do the course again. And I did the course again. And I failed it. I was failing on stupid things. 1 minute it was my maths, 1 minute it was my English, but I knew it was predominantly my English. And I more or less consoled with myself. I said, it probably wasn't meant to be, and I left it. And it was only back in the early 90s I moved to Oxford, and they were taking on what they call retained firefighters, part-time firefighters, because I was working as a physical training instructor there, next door. And I thought, let me try again. So I passed the test there, and I took the complete test, and I was the first black man on that fire station. And it was a milestone because I was the first black man, second black guy to black person in the whole of Oxford Fire and Rescue Service at that time. And there was a woman who joined me on that station. But overall, it took me probably 4 or 5 attempts to get into the fire service full time. And I had that inner belief. When you know it's your vocation. I had that inner belief because I thought, no, I'm failing on stupid things. So I took little English tests. I bought books just to polish up. And I knew I weren't going to give in. And in the end, I got in. And it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. Purely because if you want something bad, even if you have obstacles, you've got to set out a plan. How are you going to overcome that obstacle? And that's how I have treated everything that has happened in my life.
So you're now in the fire brigade, fire service. Then you're now taking your athletics to another level?
Yes. What's happened at that time? My coach, Cameron Seeley, was a robust black man. He was one of the best coaches within the East Midland and West Midland. And here he had this young. He saw me as a talented athlete, and most coaches, some coaches, when they got somebody, they don't want to let that person go, knowing full well they can't progress that individual to the next level. And he was quite straightforward. He said, Dalton, I can't bring you to that next level. So what he did, he looked around, and at the time, does anyone know Darren Campbell, Jason, Catherine Merriweather over there? There was a lot of they were training in Birmingham at the time, and there was such a talented group, and he was friend with a guy named Keith Antoine, who was a coach. So he said, bring him come. So I never forget it. Keith just looked at me with his, like, he's a thinking man, and he says, all right, you see that guy there? Keith with him. And this guy was an 800-metre runner. I've never run anything over 300-400 metres in my life, because predominantly I was in the early days of the 400 runner. So off I went, tracking this guy, and I just kept going, and I went past him 600 metres, and Keith's eye kind of opened up. And you know, when I finished, I was sick. I was sick for about half an hour. I've never witnessed anything like that in my life. And he said, you know what? We want you at the training camp. And the training camp was in Benidorm back then, because that's where a lot of the GB group used to train. But money was tight them days, you know what I mean? Money was tight. And I wanted to go, I really wanted to go. So what I did, I approached my running club. And there was the president, Mary Gash. She was a lovely lady. And there was a secretary, because you had to present your case. And the man took me money since 1982, 83. And in the end, he didn't even want me to give me any money towards this trip. And that kind of hurt me, because they had somebody who had potential in the club, and they didn't want to fulfill that. They were happy to take the subs. But Mary saw God bless her, Mary saw my potential, and she took that money and gave me to go on that trip. And you know what? I repaid her tenfold. You know, God rest her please. She was absolute, and that's how the lady was. If she saw talent, even if she didn't even have to ask you back, but because I knew I was working at the time, got into working, I paid her tenfold. And within a season, my time was probably 21.7. I ran 21.2, which put me in the top 12 in the UK.
What distance was that?
That was 200 metres.
Wow.
Yeah, 200 metres. Because it's the same, if you train with the best, your mindset, it's inevitable. It rubs off. And I was surrounded by such a hotbed of talent. I couldn't but improve, and I improved very well.
So, is this amateur level you're competing at? Silly question. Is athletics today, is it all amateur, or is it professional?
I think back in the day they used to call it amateur. But what is exactly amateur? If you're training 6 days a week, is it really amateur? See, me, I won't get paid for it, but I train as a professional because it's a 6-day commitment. The only difference, I don't get paid for it. But for those who are lottery funded, that's their full-time commitment. So I would say I'm semi-professional.
And at your level, are you tested like a normal athlete for drugs, etc., etc.?
Yes. We have to go through all the testing. And even when I ran at a club level, we used to get tested. And I'll just give you a little bit about testing, because 2007, I became European indoor champion. And you know, you're bouncing up and down, you're absolutely elated because you've won the competition. But they've already randomly picked who they're going to test. It may be the first 3 in the championship. And this chap says, we need you to have a test. And he followed me everywhere. It wasn't coming. I drank. It wasn't coming. And in the end...
was it because you were nervous?
I think I was dehydrated, but you have to keep drinking. And part of that is once you've drank, you have to give a sample. And yes, so even though it don't matter what score you're in, you are tested. And testing is thorough.
So, okay, I'm thinking of testing like that. You say to the inspector, I'm ready now, and you go into the toilet.
That's right.
And then you go inside the cubicle and you shut the door behind you and he waits outside.
Nope.
Okay, is that where it's from?
No, well, what basically happened, once you go into the cubicle, you're met by the doctor and they ask you the question, have you taken anything? you write down a list of all you've taken. Usually when I go competition, I always have a list of what I've taken anyway, supplements and stuff like that. So it makes everything easier. And they ask you if you've taken anything illegal. Yeah? If you have, then you have to disclose it. They then get a box out, and then they open the box. You have to open the box. It's all sealed, and there's two samples, A and B sample, and you have to open it and break the seal, and then you have to go into the room, and they watch you. It don't matter whether you're male or female, they have to watch you pass urine. And then you bring it back, and then they divide it. They ask you to divide it into two. So you've got the A and B sample, and the A and B sample, and you seal both. Once you're happy with that, you sign for it. And then it's put back into the case and sealed. So very minimal contact.
Wow.
Now, in the event of you showing that you are, if you've taken the legal sample, they'll then test the B sample straight away. The A sample is tested, and the B sample is just to confirm the testing.
So you said how thorough your testing was.
Yeah.
How did people like Lance Armstrong get away with it for so many years?
It's another level, because you're talking about blood doping. A lot of these athletes, it's just... I think the sad thing about cycling, it was endemic. And back in the early days, drugs were really endemic in a lot of sports. And since the introduction of blood testing, I think it's much improved. Because what I think with cycling, what they do, they take your blood, and then they've got a marker. And then if they take your blood later on, they can compare the marker to what they took previously to see if you've taken any substance. So it's a lot more thorough. But Lance Armstrong was one of my idols. You know, he was one of my idols because he was a phenomenal athlete. And not just him, but when I look at other athletes who blatantly look in the camera and say, I'm clean, and then they suddenly let themselves down and they let the sport down. You know, I'm very for it. I think the onus is on you as an athlete. Whatever you put in your mouth, you make sure you check it. There's no excuses. There's no excuse, because if you're not sure, you can just phone up the governing body and say, listen, I'm taking this product. Can you get this checked out for me? And they'll do it. The onus is on you, and there's no excuse these days.
Okay. We're going to look at some of your slides, a bit about your life. The first one, I think, is the picture of aircraft.
Yeah.
Now tell us a bit about this.
Well, what's happened in Nottingham, in our area, the Air Training Corps was trying to recruit more people from our communities, and they came into my area, and they said they wanted to set up a Air Training Corps unit. And we was 138 detached fly. You had the main squadron, which was based in central Nottingham, but this was a detached unit. And we was like a ragtag team. And the officer on the right, his name is O'Brien, and he was strict. Now, trying to get us into that mindset took a lot of work. But you know what? He did us a fantastic job, and this was based at RF Coningsby when we went.
So which one are you?
Second on the right.
Okay.
Yeah, and
how old are you?
I must have been about 14, 15 then.
Okay.
14, and the chap on the right was you know Dennis. Remember Dennis?
Which one?
On second on the left. You probably don't know him, Dennis, yeah. But he was a cousin of mine.
Okay. Next one, please. Now tell us a bit about this.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a union man with the Fire Brigade Union, and I work for... We have what we call... within the union, we have the black section. B stands for black and ethnic minority members. And basically what this was set up for was, back in the day, in the early days, a lot of our brothers and sisters were being subjected to a lot of racist.
This is mine. Do you not like? Oh, sorry, mine.
Yeah, they were being subjected to a lot of racist problems. So this was set up to counteract and basically put pressure on the union that we need to be part of the union. And as a member, I deal with anything on within the fight on racial issues and how the union and fire authorities can improve within our community. So,
Is there much racism in the fire brigade, fire service?
Back in the early days, it was prolific. I must say, a lot of good work has been done, and we're not getting a lot of that issue now. There's going to be certain raises its head, but I must say it's not so bad as it used to be. There's a lot of areas where we do have members in the outbacks, but we've been dealing with those issues and it's not as bad as it used to be. But one of our mottos is that if you look to be judged by the contents of your art rather than the colour of your skin. And that's a powerful message that we send out. So when we go into authorities, we always try and instill that we are first and foremost firefighters. Don't judge us. You know, we're firefighters and we want to be treated as firefighters. Right. This is when we was one of the many jobs that I work as a community safety officer, and I work quite closely with the communities, the Asian communities, all types of communities. And one of the things what we find within the fire service is to get that message. Sadly, a lot of fires are within our communities, and so I try and meet with leaders, and we make leaflets, Urdu, Hindu, Punjabi, all the different languages, so we can get that message out. And this is one of the events that we was doing. So.
Now I'll explain this one.
Oh, right. Well, because I was a sprinter, there was a friend who his name was Lenny Paul. And Lenny Paul was one of my sprinter friends from back in Belgrade areas, and he was the first to get. He was a military guy, and he came up with this. You know what? Let's get some sprinters there. And you remember Cool Runnings? And he must have been watching Cool Runnings. He said, "Dalton, you ever thought about bobsleigh?" And met I roll. I said, "You mad?" It's cold. So he chased me for about 5 years before I says, "Okay, let me go and try." And I turned up at Fort Park, was the National Push Centre, and there's about 30 guys, and we turned up, and we was able to push the bob. It's like a training one. It's the ones who could push it weighted. And within a short space of time, that was a push in August, and then we was part of the bobsleigh team in September training. I must say, I was a brake man. You can see me at the back because I was the fastest one. And we went all over Europe competing at the World Cup, European Cup circuit. But it was just an exhilarating sport. Because when I first went down, all I was like, and when it stopped, they said, "You're right." And I went, "You're dead." Yeah. You know, I tell you what, it was like nothing I've ever experienced. And I must say, I did 3 years of that, but I transferred with London Fire Service, and one of my partners, there was two of us, two black guys, two of us was on the team, and because it was a good PR for them, they said, off you go for 4 or 5 months training, full pay, you know, it was full pay, and they can then use it to do recruitment, which to me was a fair exchange, you know. So that's, I did 3 years of bobsleigh, and they called me Pops because I was the oldest guy. Everybody was in the 20s, and I was in probably mid-30s at the time. And but we had a crash, and you know when it was a bad crash, I popped my back out, and I thought, you know what, Dalton, now's the time to walk away. But I regret it. I wish I started that sport a bit younger.
Yeah.
You know,
You loved it that much?
I loved it. I loved it. This is now. If I didn't have Achilles problem, they were looking to do recruitment in training in August, and I was one of the instructors said, "Dalton, we've been watching your times. You should try out again for the bobsleigh team because some of them youngsters can't push as quick as you."
I'm not here to embarrass you, but how old are you now, Dalton?
I'm 50. Yeah. Yeah, I turned 50. Right.
Which one's you?
You see the height? I was in the zone. And everything was coming together that year. This is 2007, the European Masters Athletics Championships. This is where you're competing within your own age group. It starts from 35, so you're competing in your own age group with people 35 to 39, 40 to 49, right up. Even they've got people in the 70s and 80s competing at these championships. So within every age group, there's a champion, a world champion, European champion. And when I was first, I have a friend named Viv Oliver, and I remember the young man, I was flying. And Viv was, back then, he was 40 years old. And I was coming off the bend, and next minute, and I looked, Viv was behind me, you know, and he was my inspiration. He told me about the Masters. And Viv was running 22.7 indoors at age 40. And you know what? I've not even touched that indoors for what he was doing. But with that time, at the European, everything came good, and I won the 60 metres. I became European champion, and then I went on to become European indoor 200 metre champion. I did a double, and we won the 4 by 200 metre indoor, and it was a magical season that year. Everything just came good. I managed to get my diet down. You know, I started to cut down on all the food, and it just came good on that day.
So when you're training, do you actually avoid yard food?
No. Well, it's funny you say, you know, Jamaican ways. I was training this morning, and I had to go for me a bit breakfast, my ackee saltfish.
This doesn't slow you down?
No, I think the reality is, the reality is, I think now I understand food, I understand nutrition a lot more, because as a young man you could eat and get away with it, and there was a period when I was injured. I had a knee operation a couple of years ago, and I was eating the same amount of food. So I went up from 15 stone to 17 stone. And it was funny because I went to New York for the World Police and Firefighter Games. Has anyone heard of the World Police and Firefighter Game? Well, for those who know it, the World Police and Firefighter Game is the second biggest event outside the Olympics. You've got nearly 18,000 athletes who are police or military personnel competing, and it's held every 2 years. So on that year, it was held in New York, the memorial game for 9/11, and I had my operation. I knew I went in no shape, but I paid me money, and the brigade contributed. So I thought, I'm just going to go. Well, Hurricane Irene hit that same time, and the whole of New York was shut down. So what I did, I just started going to these delis and eating food and enjoying myself. But I thought, I'm going to line up and turn up, and I won it. So I thought, but with my big belly self, because it's the first time I went past the mirror and I had this big gut in front of me. And my missus grabbed the belly and says, what's this, you know? So I won it, and I thought, you know what, if they can't beat me, when I'm at my worst, they'll never ever beat me when I'm at my best. And that changed my mindset a second time. And what I did from there on was really understand what was going into my diet and stuff like that. Don't get me, you have a cheat day. You have to give the little cheat day, the hard food days and stuff like that. But I've been experimenting with juices, make my own juices and stuff like that, trying new things. It just keeps you on the edge, and I seem to be getting the better of it now.
Beautiful. That's my brother.
Well, this is, I did a play recently, and this is a couple of years ago, and what happened, I haven't sang for years, and my cousin remembered me from school days when we used to do amateur dramatics, so he said, Dalton, how's your voice? I says, boy, I haven't sang for years, and he says, we need you. So I said, what do you mean you need me? He says, somebody's dropped out of the play that they're doing, and we want somebody with a good voice, but I haven't used that range of voice for ages. So I said, no guarantees. I'm going to go and I'm going to look, and if it works, I'm going to do it. So I walked into the theatre in Loughborough, and there must have been about 40 people there, and I walk in, hey! I looked at him and says, what did you say to me? So I said, there's no guarantee. So I sat down and I listened to the production, and it just caught me. The production was powerful. And I said, I'll give it. But they were practiced from June. I had 5 weeks to practice every song. And I was singing it in the car, I was singing it in the bathroom, I was singing it at work. But in the end, the production was in October, and I did that production, and it was amazing.
Is there anything you can't do?
I think everything worthy of a challenge, I would go and do it.
Good
What
one.
was the play?
What was it?
It was just gone from here now. I don't remember it, right?
Now explain this one.
Wow.
These are just some of the shots I've...
They're the pictures we want to get.
These are just some of the photo shoots I've done over the time. I've done body shots, commercials. I've done a wide range of shots for companies as well. So, yeah.
Like it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to I'm sorry, sis. We're going to move on to your influential books.
Yes.
Okay? So the first book. Tell us.
Yeah, the Holy Book, the Bible, is a book that I read. Funny enough, I've got it as an app on my phone. So every morning I always give that a read. So I try and use the book and draw inspiration from the book. So definitely get it on your app. It's good.
Yeah.
The next book.
Kes,
Oh,
you remember that book?
Yeah.
You know, that was the first book I really read, and it's funny because it was my teacher, Mr. Smith, who read it. He used to read it to us, and I used to listen to his story, and he was a great storyteller. He used to draw you in, and when he finished the book, he gave me the book, and I still got that book at home. You know, and it's a fantastic book, really, really good book. So that's Kes, yeah. Yeah, and it's Kes. Right. Yeah, really. Even when I watched the film, it pulled me because this boy was just having a hard time, but he fell in love with the kestrel, and in the end, he was killed.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anybody seen the film?
Yeah.
Great film.
Very good film.
Okay, this is a bit controversial. Tell us this one.
Funny enough, the book isn't like that. The book I've got is a different book, and it was funny because when I was in the library as a young man at school, and I just looked at this book, and it was in the library,
At school?
At school.
With that title?
With that title.
Wow.
And I pulled it out, and I was looking at it, and anybody reading it, and I read it at school. And what drew me in with the book was the fact that he was a black man. He was from an affluent family, and he was going to a public school, and he was just going about how people perceived him within the school, and how we dealt with issues within that school. And at that time, because I was going through a lot of trials and error, I was in the worst class. It kind of inspired me because I read through some of the story. Some of the stuff I didn't agree what he said in the book, but I guess that's because of the time. But he drew the fact that he had this adversity going on, and he was able to punch through all the prejudices and isms within that organisation.
Good man.
Clive Cussler, anyone who raised the Titanic? Now, I love adventure book, and I've always been intrigued with the Titanic. There was a film, A Night to Remember. I don't know if anyone's seen it, early days. It was about 1950s film. And I watched this film, and I was inspired about all the stories of the Titanic. But I loved when this book came out, I wanted to know about everything about the Titanic. And he portrayed this book fantastically. And he's been one of my best action-packed authors ever since. I've read all his books. I love this guy because he's very detailed in what he writes, and he's very creative as well. So, Clive Cussler.
Now, the next book, if you don't mind. A lot of people I know into sports talk about this book, so explain.
Well, funny enough, Dr. Steve Peters is a friend of mine.
No way!
Yeah, Dr. Steve Peters is a friend of mine. He's a masters athlete as well. And I first met Dr. He's broken all world records from the age 35 going on. He's now in his 60s now. And he's over, funny enough, he's over at the World Masters Athletics Championship in Brazil. And he's just won the 100 and 200 metre titles as well at age 60. But I remember when he said he was going to write this book. And this was about 3 years ago. And he already was given the royalty of 50 grand before he even put pen to paper. Because the cycling team, he's the guy who has got the minds of the British cycling team together. He's the one who's trained their mind to be very efficient and world champions. And he wrote this book. And I like this book because what this book basically tells, we all got our inner demons, yeah? We all got our inner demons. It's just like when you want to do something, the voice in your head says, "No, better do it." Or, "Why are you doing that for? You might get hurt." That's your survival mechanism. And this book basically tells you how to deal with those inner demons. That's what he calls it, the chimp, because that's the primeval side of your personality. That's a strong personality there. But then you've got the human side, the rationale side, and it really goes into detail with that book. So I use this book as a part of my, when I'm preparing my mind for a championship, I've been using that book, and it's a very, very good book.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard a lot about it. Next one, bro.
Slaying the Dragon, Michael Johnson, 400 metre runner. Just an awesome athlete, and he just basically how he practiced, and he was studying at the time. Sometimes his practicing was at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Such was his dedication, because he knew he needed to achieve his academic qualification, but he needed to be successful in his sport, and that had to take President early hours of training, 4 or 5 o'clock, and then he's studying in university.
Sound like Damien.
Yeah.
That's what he does now.
Yeah. So yeah, very powerful book. Very powerful.
Next one, bro.
Need I say any more? Yeah. I tell you what, I didn't even know I was black until I watched that. Back in the day, it was not an issue. You just got on with life. And it was only when I saw the film, and it was like, wow. It woke us up. And I read the book, and it was a big book to read, and it touched me. The book touched me more than the film. I don't know why it was. It did both, but when I read the book, it really, really touched me. And Roots is a powerful story, and if you've not read Roots, get the book. You know.
Who here has never heard of Roots? Anybody here? No? Okay, so you all know about Roots. Have you heard about Roots, Nazi? Okay, stand corrected. Okay, I loved it. Some people have actually said that a lot of the book is fiction.
Right.
But they said that after he died. He didn't say it to his face. Loved the book, loved the film. Amazing.
I must say, I find since I've been inspired to write a lot, because one of the things, I'm dyslexic, and it makes a lot of sense when I was going through a lot of changes in my life as a young boy, because I used to always avoid certain things like writing and stuff like that. And it was only when I was in the fire service and I was starting to write policies and stuff like that, then it kind of came to the forefront.
You see, what I like about you is that if you listen keenly to what you're saying, you're realising that you're multi-layered. Yes, you do a job, but you're more involved. You're not just a normal worker in the job. You're very much involved in the job that you do.
Very much so. And but I needed that help. And I wrote a policy, and it was full of mistakes. And so I asked them to get me tested for dyslexia, because when you're working with management, you just don't want to come across like an idiot, really. And so I was tested at the Institute of Dyslexia, and that's when it came out that I was dyslexic. I knew I was dyslexic, but it was never diagnosed. And from there, I was able to get all the help through the organisation, and that kind of inspired me to write and stuff like that.
I remember when I was younger as well, I thought I was dyslexic, and I got tested also. And they said to me, "You're not dyslexic, you're just thick." So I guess we're slightly different. But at least I know. At least I know. Let's not go.
Well, Mike says, Ro gets Theosaurus. Why? Because when I was injured and I was off work for 6 months, and I thought, I've always been inspired to write, and I wanted to write a novel, which I'm still writing now, but I wrote a few short stories and stuff like that. And that book opened my vocabulary up, because we as people, we always write the same old tones and the same old words. But when I started to look in this book, I thought, whoa, I can add that word. And it was only when I was reading my stories to my sisters and brothers, you never write that. I thought, it's good, So that book follows me everywhere I go. And I've been writing a little, I write a little short story. There's a little, of course. This is just something I wrote off by a cuff, yeah? It's just a bit of a poem. Yeah, I was at an athletics competition in Hungary, and there was this guy, and he had an afro, and I looked at the afro, and I thought, I'm inspired to write about his afro, right? So the title is When Afro Was King. When the fro was king, the black man carried the swing. Style to perfection, the fro commanded true perfection. From small froze, medium froze, large froze. Brothers used to walk the street with a swagger. The sisters used to turn and stagger to the height and perfection of the fro, shining all its glory with a little help from a few friends. Half-fro cream, half-fro sheen, luster cream, brill cream, right down to good old Vaseline, the products of choice. Mama used to say, here is a woman's beauty and a man's disgrace. So don't even think of coming around this your yard if you don't comb your hair. No room in this your hen for picky head man. So sisters, if your man is looking to rekindle his youth and sport the fro, I beg you go shop and buy him the fro's best friend, the Afro couple. And together they can rekindle the eyes that even gravity cannot pull down. Seen.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move on now to 7 influential sayings. Your first one.
Yes, I have a dream. The big man himself. I think it touched everybody's heart, and it has resonated in my life. There's been a lot of changes over there, but it's still going on. And so I put this one as one of my biggest influence.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Jackie Joyner Kirsty. True.
Who is she?
Jackie Joyner Kirsty was an heptathlete. Funny, she was severely asthmatic, but yet she was able to rise above all those problems and be world Olympic champion. And age is no barrier, it's a limitation you put in your mind, and that is so true. If you limit yourself, you've got to rise to the challenge. It's not just sport, but in life. Set your goal and have an action plan. How are you going to get there?
That's one, bro.
Yeah, true. If you fail to prepare, you're prepared to fail. If you don't cover every details in what you're doing, you will fail. Mark Spitz, I think it was 8 times, he won 8 or 12 medals, yeah.
Swimming. Before the torpedo.
Yes, way before that.
That's one.
I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. Muhammad Ali, such a true word. You've got to sacrifice, you've got to want it, you've got to live and breathe what you want in order to succeed. And I love that, I love his words. People without the knowledge of their past, history, origins, and culture is like a tree without roots. Yes. The great man himself, Marcus Garvey. If you don't know where you're going, if you don't know yourself, how do you know where you're going? Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we see. Barack Obama. You know what? I think everybody watched the race to the White House. I watched it. I breathed it. And when he won it, it touched me on every level. And it still does, because he has inspired a generation. If he can do it, other people can do it. So I put that on my top.
Brilliant. I'm going to open the floor to questions. Anybody want?
What's the most dangerous situation you face as a fireman?
Sorry?
What's the most dangerous situation you face as a fireman?
Over 17 years. We had an incident when I was in London, and it was a very large university, and what it was a 5-story building, and one of the security guards deliberately started a fire in one of the top wings, right at the far end. Now this building was quite big, with like a tower in the middle. And so when we was dealing with the fire, what happened on the 5th floor, the fire jumped into the loft behind us. And if it wasn't for some of the firefighters who noticed it was smoking through the back of it, we would have been caught up in that area. So that was probably the most dangerous. But we've been to quite a lot of incidents. But that just gave me a reality check how dangerous the job is. We're going through a lot of changes in the fire service. The government, in their wisdom, are asking firefighters to work till they're 60. Now, I don't know about you, but the government did a white paper study showing that firefighters 55 to 60% of firefighters will not make the age of 60. So you will be sacked on capability. And this is one of the reasons why we're fighting and we're on the verge of strike now. We've challenged them, we've won them throughout the courts, and they're still not listening. So we've just announced 2 days on strike.
Oh, you don't need to that night. Have you ever been hurt?
Have I ever been hurt?
Yeah.
Yes, I've been hurt. I've twisted countless twists on ankles. I got a burn on my arm here all the time. I've burned my ears, but back in the day, you didn't have what we call flashers that protected your ears, like now, and all this was burnt around the back here. So you do pick up. It's not as bad now, but in the early days, always getting burned in some shape or form.
But it's never deterred you.
No, because I think when you're trained, it's like everything else. We are trained. You know, we're trained while you're coming out, we're going in. But everything is dynamically assessed. So we know by just looking at a building, if we are there to save life. But first and foremost, if my officer feels that it's going to put his team at risk, they won't put us in there. So we will fight the fire outside. So we're trained to go in and trained to understand all the elements, the fires, the behaviour of fire. But we will put ourselves in a position of risk, but we won't do unnecessary risk. Because like you said, there's been stories where firefighters have died, you know. But it's very less. We don't get as much like we used to.
Just one question before you pass it on to other people. A few years ago, the fire service was about to go on strike, or went on strike, regarding time or hours that they were working. And at one stage, because I think they were trying to cut the hours, was to do with cutting the pay based on the fact that they didn't do as much work as they should do. Am I getting this right?
Back in the day, what happened? What's happened? Fires have come down. Fires have come down, and that's from a lot of intervention work, fire safety work, whether we go to homes, put smoke alarms up. Fires have gone down over the last 10 years. And this is part of the job that we do. We don't just deal with fires, we deal with everything community-based. So you'll hear the government say fires have gone down, but they won't tell you that the reason why fires have gone down is because we go into houses, we reduce the fires, but we still do a lot of community-based work, and we still have to deal with flooding, and we have to deal with everything else. But they will spin it that because fires have gone down, there's no need for firefighters. But we still need a lot of fire, because unfortunately, the climatic changes around, as you see now. We don't really get paid for flooding. That's not our job. We're paid for fires. But we're called upon now to do more flooding and go to floods and deal with floods. So we have to be adaptable. I'm trained to be flood response team. So I'm on a special unit, wherefore in the event of a national disaster, I'm called as part of the team to go and deal with that incident.
Okay.
Do you still put the smoke alarms up in your home?
Yes, we still do. So if it's like everything, if you do need smoke alarm, just contact your local brigade, and they will put them up.
I'm glad you put that there, because I can imagine some of the sisters here giving me a telephone number and saying, I'm glad you did that. Well done. Sorry, Jackie.
When was the last time you got a cat from out of a tree? I'm joking.
You want the
That's
answer?
not a joke.
No, I'm going to give you an
Oh,
answer.
go on then.
I remember when I was in Oxfordshire, there was this cat up a tree, and this cat would not come down. So my attitude, why you want to take a cat out of a tree when he wants to come down? So we turned to the lady, go and get some cat food. Yeah, and I told my friend to rev up the fire engine, and I blast it out with water. You see how quick it come down?
Sponsored by Speaks here.
That was a really bad question. My question is, we talked about you're in the fire service, but going to athletics.
Yes.
Today's athletics, do you think it's quite glamorised? I mean, do you think it's detracted from the fact that they are actually athletes, how you trained and you worked hard? I'm not saying that these guys aren't, but it's more of a show now, do you think?
I think athletics is the poor man's sport compared to football. They'll throw absolutely everything into football because it's more. But sadly, if you only have to look up and down the country, athletics has very little funding compared to other sports. And a prime example was with the Olympics. We only have the second best stadium in Sheffield, National Stadium, so they want to close it.
Yeah.
Well, what legacy is that? And this is what we always have to deal with. We're trying to get a lot of young people into athletics because it's a fantastic sport, but the government is still not investing. They'll say it, but we're still struggling to get people into sport. They've got to make athletics a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, more pliable. With the street athletics. And that's a great spectacle, and I think that's probably the way forward. The more they get it out and show that we have stars, and young stars, because I must say I'm quite excited with this generation of young kids coming through. They are very hungry and they're very talented, thanks to the lottery funding, but the lottery funding is still brutal, and if you don't show promise, they'll cut you straight away, even if you've had an injury. So you get some athletes who get that lottery funding, and some athletes who are better than that person who don't get no funding. I can't see that,
So how do you get the funding? How is it that, if, like, say, if England were playing, they'd be paid for, sorted, they'd be there.
Yeah.
How is it for athletes?
I think if you show that they have different levels, and if you start to get it a marker for example, sprinters start to show 11.4, 11.3, that's when they start taking notice of you, and they may put you on a special program. And that special program you may have to go to Brunel University to train, or Loughborough to train with a group, and that's how it works. And they'll put you on a program for a period of time, and then obviously you've then got to show that you are improving over that given time. But if you don't show that you're improving, they'll take it away from you. But the good thing about the lottery, you've got all that medical backup, you've got all that support. And it just gives you that less pressure to know where some money is coming from to feed yourself and stuff like that. So.
Okay. 2 more questions? Man in the corner. You talk a lot about your dad and like the values and stuff. And then I was reading the 5th one with Marcus Garvey, where you talk about you have to know your origin, where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I think, as you said before, is that because we don't teach our children much about where we're coming from.
Yeah.
Like the Jamaicans, they come here and they struggle to raise up their children. I find out that this generation now, they don't really talk much about Jamaica. Even if you say, tell them anything about Jamaica, they're like, yes, Jamaica is, we hear it's nice, but no interest no more.
No.
And those values, I realized that's why most of the younger black young guys, they don't have that much manners no more.
Yeah.
Because the values that was passed on to me and you, the older generation, is that somewhere it got lost, that now you're having more problem.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, when I hear talk about your dad, it's way back.
Yeah.
It's coming from way back then. And the discipline that he bypassed to you.
Yeah.
As I said, it seems as if that we, as black people, will lose that. We are more British than our cultures that uphold us. We forget about that.
Yeah.
If you ask about Jamaica there, they'll tell you why Mama used to do this or Dad used to do that.
I want to find out where is on that? Where is it now?
Sadly, you're right. Yeah, sadly you're right, because when we were growing up, we used to go to Saturday school, you know, and there is in Nottingham, there is still some of those Saturdays still going, and you're right. We as a generation, we got comfortable, and you know, I've got 4 kids. I'm a granddad. I've got 3 grandkids, and I try and instill those little traditional values at all times, because they know I don't mess, you know. And it was funny because even when I was growing up, when my sisters and brother were going to tell Uncle Dalton, and they used to say, "Oh, don't tell Uncle Dalton," because they know I'm consistent. You know, don't get me wrong. If I'm talking to you and my son butts in, you know, wait, big people talking. I'm old school. You know, I'm old school. Sorry, don't butt in when I'm talking. If you say, "Excuse me, Dad," yeah, fine, but then don't butt in. You know what I mean? But I try and instill that through my kids, and you know, everybody who I come in contact with knows my standards anyway. So that's the way I try and do it.
Any more questions? Final one? Anyone?
Johnson or Bolt? Which one? Which one's your preference?
Different eras, but I love Usain Bolt because he's broken the mold. And I remember back in the day when everybody was serious on that. You know, Americans used to always be serious. Nobody talked to each other. And I think Usain Bolt has brought in a lot of love into the sport. And I tell you what, all it takes is a nice character like him to bring athletics up. And he's done very, very well for the sport. Flip side of it, I've been very, very saddened by, because Dalton Powell, you know, trust me, he was a god in my eyes. He was a talented man, but mentally he wasn't strong. You know, he had the gift. He's got more gift than Usain Bolt. Yeah, he's got more gift, but his mental capacity. You know what? I might just give him that book, The Chimp Paradox, so he can read that book, because you can look at him on the line and he's lost the race already. But I was so gutted when he was done for drugs, and I thought, wow.
Do you know that point you're talking about? It was that exact point with Dalton Powell. Yeah, the top 5 in the race.
Yeah.
All tested positive.
Yeah.
The only one who didn't, who won the race, was Bolt.
Yeah.
So, is he or isn't he?
Who, Bolt?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he is, and I'll tell you the reason why. You remember I used to watch Trans World Sport? Yeah. I used to watch it on Saturday, and I remember probably about 10, 12, 13 years ago, this young, skinny boy come on, and they said 1 to watch. And this boy was busting out 20.3, 20.4 at 15, 16. So he had the God-given talent. And like he says, he didn't need to do that. He's got the talent already. And it's same with the Venus Williams sisters. I remember them way back. They had the God-given talent. So I think what you see is a natural gift that he's had. And
you know, when they put 5 of the athletes who tested positive, and he's the only one who beats him non-tested positive.
Exactly.
For me,
I agree.
I leave it out there. They always say people in training, and I've been training all my life, it's physically impossible. Physically impossible for him to beat all them people and not be positive. Because if you listen to what he says, I've never tested positive for a banned substance. That's not a denial. That's I've never tested positive. So Armstrong said for years, you know. Not saying. Well, it's actually a play on words.
Yeah, but my attitude is this. My attitude
is
no, I agree. My attitude is this. Take everything that is legal to take and don't touch anything that shouldn't be taken. You know, because at the end of the day, the way I look on it, in terms of my sport, I love my sport. And the last thing I want to do is bring on disgrace to my sport, myself, and my family. You know, and I couldn't live with that.
It's an interesting thing, though, isn't it? Because when he's cheating, is it an unfair advantage, or because they get to the playing field. It's not the same, man.
Well,
Again, I'm not saying
yeah,
that.
but the flip side of it, one thing I like about athletics is they're not afraid to embrace cheats. Yeah, we'll deal with them.
Yeah.
That's compared to most sport. We don't have to look at football, and football is another. If they were to follow the protocols of drug testing within football, probably it would be absolutely ridiculously high. But we can only but clean up our sport. And me, if you ban for drugs, ban for 4 years minimum. Then you don't get into that cycle for the next sport. Ban for 4 years, and if you do it again, ban for life. And that's how I see it, you know? Because there's too many people who will take risks because it's all about that. Simple as that. You only have to look at the two Jamaican Campbell.
Yeah.
You know, people thought she was training in Jamaica. She didn't. She used to live in America. She trained with other athletes in America, but that's the nature of the beast. You take a risk, you get caught.
I think winning is money, and winning is success.
Yeah.
People will pay the price for that. It's like winning a war.
Yeah.
War's not important than winning unless you actually want the outcome to be what you want it to be.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a moral issue.
Yeah, it's a moral issue, I agree.
Final question I want to put to you. What advice would you give, say, a young up-and-coming person in whatever they wanted to do, but they felt that the doors of opportunity were constantly being slammed in their face? Let's say work at McDonald's.
If you, as an individual, if you want to do something, the first thing I've seen what you have to do, you've got to find out who those people are who are doing it. Yeah? Because like it says, you've got to plan your life and set those examples of where you want to be. But most important, get in contact with influential people that will help you to get where you want to be. Yeah? And that's what I would recommend to a lot of young people. Find out who those people will make a change in your life. You know, as a young man growing up, I was inspired by key people, and I used to be mentored myself as a young boy. But that's what I would recommend. If you want to be a doctor, if you can find out who's a doctor, or anybody, that's where I would go.
Did you actually mention that one, or did I cut you off?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did it say?
Your talent is God's gift to you. What you do with it is your gift back to God. I agree with that.
Thank you. Round of applause for Dalton Powell. Awesome.